My name is Brianna Hale. I am 28 years old. I live in Newton, Massachusetts, in a quiet house 10 minutes away from the company headquarters. I work as the Director of Operations at Hale Construction Group, the family business my father built from a rusted pickup truck and a single backhoe. I am the person who keeps projects alive when permits stall, budgets bleed, and executives panic. I am also the daughter everyone asks to stay calm. I learned early that competence does not protect you inside a family. It only makes you useful. I learned how to fix problems quietly, how to clean messes without asking who caused them, how to swallow resentment and call it maturity. My father trusted my judgment in closed offices and ignored it in public rooms. Vivian Hale, my stepmother, understood that power lives where attention gathers, not where work is done. The night everything cracked open was meant to be harmless. A charity gala for the Hale Foundation. Crystal chandeliers. Soft music. Cameras flashing for donors who wanted their generosity remembered. I wore a black dress and stood near the edge of the ballroom, close enough to intervene if something went wrong, far enough to avoid being seen. That was my role in the family ecosystem. Necessary, replaceable, quiet. Vivian stepped onto the small stage with a champagne flute in her hand. She looked fragile in the way women learn to look when they want protection. Her voice trembled just enough to invite concern. She thanked the guests, praised the foundation, spoke about family values. Then she turned slightly, not fully facing me, and said that if I truly loved my father, I would stop draining the company to fund my personal problems. She did not accuse me directly. She did not need to. The implication hung in the air, heavy and poisonous. Addiction, theft, instability. I felt the room stiffen. 40 conversations died at once. Every pair of eyes found me. I did not move. I did not speak. I watched Ethan Ross step forward. Ethan, my childhood best friend. Ethan, the company attorney. He placed himself between Vivian and me like a guardian, his hand hovering near her back. He told the room that I had been under a lot of pressure lately and that the family was handling it privately. In that moment, something inside me went cold and precise. This was not concern. This was not confusion. This was choreography. I understood that I had been cast as the liability in a story designed to protect everyone except me. I felt no urge to cry, no desire to explain myself to strangers feeding on silence. I smiled instead, not because I was calm, but because I was done being reasonable. I knew then that this was the beginning of a war I would not fight loudly, but I would fight correctly. And I would remember every face that watched me stand alone while my name was quietly dismantled. I leave the ballroom before anyone can stop me, my heels steady, my back straight, my smile still intact. The elevator ride down feels longer than the gala itself. When the doors close, I let my face go blank. Not angry, not wounded, just focused. By the time I reach the parking garage, I already know two things. Vivian planned this. Ethan agreed to it. My phone vibrates before I even reach my car. Texts stack up like fallen dominoes. Concerned messages. Vague questions. A local reporter asking for comment. I do not answer any of them. I start the engine, drive home, and open my laptop at the kitchen counter while the city lights blink outside my window. This is how I survive. I work. I replay the gala in my head, frame by frame. The way I replay failed bids and broken schedules. Vivian chose a public setting with witnesses. She avoided direct language to protect herself. Ethan stepped in to validate the implication without owning it. That means this was discussed in advance. That means there is already a paper trail somewhere. People who perform always rehearse. At midnight, Tessa Nguyen calls me. She does not ask how I feel. She never does. She asks what exactly was said, who was present, and whether the event had contracted audiovisual services. I tell her everything. She listens, silent and precise. When I finish, she says one sentence. Start preserving records now. The next morning, my badge does not open the employee entrance at headquarters. I stand there for a full second, staring at the red light, feeling nothing but clarity. Inside, security avoids my eyes as they escort me to human resources. Vivian is already there. Hands folded, expression carved from sympathy. Ethan sits beside her. legal pad ready. They tell me there has been a concern raised about my conduct. They tell me this is temporary. They tell me it is for my own protection and my father's peace of mind. I ask, who raised the concern? Vivian says she did. Ethan says it was necessary. I ask for the complaint in writing. The room stiffens. When I leave, my access is gone, my email locked, my calendar wiped. By noon, a press brief appears online. Hale Construction executive steps back amid wellness review. My name is not mentioned, but everyone knows. Vivian sends me a message full of love and worry. I do not reply. That afternoon, I sit across from a bank compliance officer named Daniel Brooks in a neutral conference room that smells like old coffee. He does not know me personally, which is why I chose him. He slides a folder across the table. Someone attempted to open a line of credit in my name using company references. It was flagged. The request came through a non-profit intermediary, the Hale Foundation. That night, I finally see my father. Grant looks smaller in his hospital bed, proud even while wired to machines. He tells me Vivian is worried about me. He tells me Ethan says I am exhausted. He asks me to cooperate. Just for now. I tell him I love him. I do not tell him the rest. 3 days later, police knock on my door for a wellness check. Anonymous call. Concerned for my safety. I invite them in, ask for their names, badge numbers, and incident reference. I answer calmly. They leave disappointed. I write everything down. Tessa sends me a spreadsheet before dawn. Vendor payments routed through the foundation. Consulting fees with no deliverables. A shell company registered under a variation of Vivian maiden name. It is clean. Too clean. Designed to look charitable. Designed to disappear. I request the Gala footage from the venue. They tell me the file was overwritten. I request the backup policy in writing. I request the vendor contract. I request preservation of all related data. I am polite. I am relentless. Ethan calls that evening. He tells me I am making this harder than it needs to be. He says Vivian is fragile. He says my father cannot handle conflict. I ask him one question. Did you ever ask if it was true? He does not answer. By the end of the week, Vivian files for a temporary restraining order, claiming I intimidated her. The document reads like a script. Fearful. Vague. Urgent. I receive it without comment. Then I sit down with my attorney, lay out the timeline, and place my evidence on the table. This is when the war becomes formal, not emotional, not personal, procedural, documented. I do not need to convince anyone I am innocent. I only need to let the truth surface in a room where lying has consequences. And I am very good at building rooms that hold weight. I start a master file and label it with the date of the gala. I create folders for messages, invoices, recordings, and witnesses. I screenshot every headline and archive every voicemail. I do not speculate. I document. Idonargo, annotate. Each small act steadies me, like breathing through turbulence. I sleep little, eat poorly, and think clearly. By the time the sun rises, I am no longer reacting. I am preparing, quietly, methodically, for the moment when they realize silence is no longer protecting them. I understand now that families do not implode from one betrayal. They erode from habits of denial. Vivian relies on image. Ethan relies on approval. My father relies on hope. Those are not crimes. They are weaknesses. Weaknesses leave patterns, and patterns leave evidence. I have spent my career turning patterns into leverage. This will be no different. They think this phase will exhaust me. They think I will apologize to make it end. They do not understand that once I am removed from the system, I can finally see it whole. This is only the first week, and already the structure is cracking where they assumed it was solid enough. The restraining order hearing is scheduled for a Tuesday morning, early enough that the courthouse smells like disinfectant and burnt coffee. Vivian arrives in a soft gray coat, hair loose, eyes red as if she has not slept. Ethan walks beside her, one hand hovering near her elbow, steady and protective. They look exactly like what they want to be seen as. A frightened woman and the man brave enough to stand between her and danger. I sit at the opposite table with my attorney, hands folded, posture neutral. I wear no makeup. I do not perform distress. I let them fill the silence with their story. Vivian speaks first. Her voice shakes. She says she feels unsafe. She says I have been unpredictable. She says she worries I will hurt her or myself. She never says when. She never says how. Ethan adds context. He talks about pressure, about family strain, about my position in the company. He never says I am guilty. He lets implication do the work. When it is my turn, my attorney asks simple questions. Dates. Themes. Communication. We submit the police wellness check report, complete with incident number and body camera confirmation. We submit text messages Vivian sent me after the gala, full of affection and concern, sent hours after she claims she feared me. The judge's eyebrow lifts slightly. It is a small movement. It is enough. The order is granted in a limited form. Distance. No contact. Temporary. The judge schedules an evidence hearing. Vivian exhales in relief, as if she has survived something terrible. Ethan squeezes her hand. They walk out together, convinced this round went their way. Outside, Tessa waits for me on the courthouse steps. She does not ask how it felt. She hands me a tablet. On the screen is a timeline. Vendor payments. Dates aligned with foundation events. Funds routed in neat circles. It is beautiful in a terrible way. The kind of fraud that assumes no one will look too closely. That afternoon, my father signs an emergency document granting Vivian temporary authority over certain operational decisions. Ethan presents it as standard. Necessary. Protective. I read it line by line when it reaches me. The language is careful. The power shift is real. Vivian now controls what she always wanted without asking for it directly. I do not confront my father. Not yet. I know he is tired. I know he wants peace. I also know that peace bought with denial is the most expensive kind. Instead, I request board minutes from the Hale Foundation. I request donor disclosures. I request internal audits. I do it formally, through counsel, with deadlines and acknowledgement receipts. Vivian responds with warmth and delay. Ethan responds with legal language and patience. They think time is on their side. Mason Hale finds me in the hospital cafeteria 2 days later. He looks uncomfortable, like someone standing in the wrong classroom. He tells me his mother asked him to say I frightened him. He tells me she practiced the words with him. He does not know why he is telling me this. He only knows it felt wrong. I thank him. I do not ask him to repeat it to anyone else. I tell him to keep notes, dates, exact words. He nods, relieved to have instructions. That night, I receive an invoice from a consulting firm I have never heard of, Northlake Consulting. The logo is minimalist. The deliverables are vague. The amount is not. Tessa confirms it within an hour. Shell company, registered 3 years ago, registered under a name Vivian once used before she remarried. Ethan calls me again. He sounds tired now, less certain. He tells me this has gone far enough. He tells me Vivian is overwhelmed. He tells me my father is suffering. I ask him if his student loan payoff was overwhelming too. Silence stretches across the line, thick and unmistakable. I end the call without raising my voice. The evidence hearing approaches. Vivian's demeanor changes. She stops pretending to be kind. Her messages become clipped. Her attorney files motions to delay. She leaks another story. This one hints at instability, at resentment, at a daughter who cannot accept her place. I archive it and add it to the file. The day before the hearing, Tessa recovers the gala footage from a secondary venue backup and a donor phone clip. It shows Vivian leaning close to the audiovisual technician, smiling, speaking quietly. Minutes later, the feed cuts. It is not a confession. It does not need to be. In the courtroom, Vivian testifies again. She cries harder this time. Her words blur. She says she only wanted to protect the family. She says she never meant harm. When my attorney presents the bank records, the vendor registrations, the footage, her story loses shape. When Mason's statement is entered, it fractures. Ethan sits very still. The judge listens. The room shifts. By the time we finish, the performance has nowhere left to stand. The judge refers the matter for further investigation. Not loudly, not dramatically, procedurally, correctly. Vivian is escorted out through a side door, face pale, expression stunned. Ethan is left at the table, alone for the first time, papers scattered, protector without a role. I do not look back at either of them as I leave. I feel no triumph, only resolution settling into place, like a structure finally bearing weight. This is not the end. It is the moment the story stops being theirs to control. The investigation does not announce itself. It arrives quietly, through letters and requests and phone calls that do not use names unless necessary. The foundation board schedules an emergency meeting. Donors begin asking for audits instead of photo opportunities. Banks freeze accounts without drama. Vivian stops calling altogether. My father is discharged from the hospital 2 days later. He looks older when he walks into the house, as if gravity finally noticed him. We sit at the kitchen table with sunlight cutting across the floor. He tells me he never thought it would go this far. I tell him it went this far long before the gala. We sit in silence after that. It is not peaceful, but it is honest. The charity board removes Vivian as chair pending review. The statement is polite, bloodless, devastating. A week later, investigators request interviews with staff, then with vendors, then with Ethan. I hear about that one secondhand. He does not call me. The press cycle shifts. Wellness speculation gives way to financial irregularities. Articles soften my role without apologizing. The public is very good at forgetting who they were ready to destroy when a better villain appears. Ethan shows up at my house one evening without warning. He looks smaller somehow, as if the air around him has thinned. He tells me he never meant to hurt me. He tells me he believed Vivian needed protection. He tells me he thought I was strong enough to handle it. I tell him that strength is not consent. He asks if there is anything he can do. I tell him to tell the truth wherever it is requested and nowhere else. I do not offer forgiveness. I do not threaten him. He leaves with his hands empty and his face drained of purpose. Vivian files a counter-complaint. It accuses me of retaliation, manipulation, emotional abuse. It is long and emotional and thin. Her attorney withdraws 3 days later. The replacement does not make eye contact with me in the hallway. Mason stops answering her messages. He moves in with my father temporarily. He does not speak much. I do not ask him to choose sides. He already has. The foundation accounts are formally frozen pending outcome. Grant resigns from the board, quietly, without ceremony. He tells me he failed to protect me. I tell him failure is not permanent unless you defend it. He notes, "It is the closest we have come to agreement in years." Ethan loses his position as company counsel during the review. The firm cites conflict of interest and reputational risk. He does not contest it. His law license review follows, slowly, thoroughly. He texts me once from an unfamiliar number, apologizing again. I delete it without reading the second sentence. Vivian appears at the gate one afternoon, unannounced, unguarded, stripped of audience. She looks ordinary without a stage. She tells me she was only trying to secure the future. She tells me she never thought it would spiral. She tells me she is being treated unfairly. I listen until she finishes. Then I tell her that fairness is not the absence of consequences. It is their correct application. I ask her to leave. She does. The formal findings arrive a month later. Misuse of charitable funds, false vendor invoicing, coordinated misrepresentation. The language is clinical. The effect is absolute. Vivian resigns from every public role she held. The foundation dissolves. Donors issue statements about accountability and learning moments. My name appears once, at the bottom of one article, described as the executive who initiated internal review. No adjectives. No redemption arc. I prefer it that way. Hale Construction undergoes a full compliance overhaul. I lead it, not because I am vindicated, but because I am capable. The board votes unanimously. No one mentions the gala again. Ethan relocates. Vivian disappears. My father begins physical therapy and reads the news more carefully now. One night, alone in my office, I open the master file I created weeks ago. I scroll through the folders. Message, invoices, recordings, witness statements. I close it without deleting anything. Some records should exist even when the case is closed. I do not feel victorious. I feel aligned. The noise has cleared. The system reflects reality again. That is enough. I understand now that being the bigger person is often just another way of being asked to disappear. I am done disappearing. What remains is not rage or bitterness. It is clarity. And clarity, once achieved, is very hard to take away. This was never about revenge. It was about refusing to carry other people's lies in my name. The fallout belongs to those who built it. I simply stepped aside and let gravity do its work. The war is over. The cost is tallied. And for the first time, the silence around me feels earned rather than enforced. I do not attend the press conference announcing the final findings. I read the statement alone in my office, after hours, when the building hums like a tired animal settling down. My name appears once, stripped of adjectives, and disappears again. That feels right. Vindication has never interested me. Accuracy has. Life does not snap back into place after a public collapse. It reorders itself slowly, like furniture moved in the dark. The company stabilizes under new compliance rules. Contracts resume. People learn how to speak to me without lowering their voices. My father watches this from a distance, quieter than before, but more attentive. We do not repair everything. We stop pretending it was not broken. Ethan sends one final message months later. It is longer than the others. It is full of reflection and regret and memory. I delete it without opening the attachment. Some conversations end because they have already said everything worth hearing, just not when it mattered. Vivian never contacts me again. I hear fragments through lawyers and filings, then nothing at all. Her absence does not feel like victory. It feels like space returning to a room that was too crowded for years. I do not fill it with anything new. I let it remain empty. Mason finishes the school year and starts making plans that do not involve pleasing anyone. We talk sometimes, not as siblings bound by obligation, but as two people who survive the same distortion. I tell him one thing only: never trade your reality for approval. He remembers it. On a cold morning in early winter, I walk through the job site of our largest project and feel something unfamiliar. Ease. The system responds the way it should. Problems surface early. Decisions hold. I am not bracing for sabotage or whispers. I am simply doing my job. I used to think strength meant enduring whatever was handed to me with grace. I know better now. Strength is deciding what does not belong in your life and removing it without ceremony. It is refusing to explain your boundaries to people who benefit from crossing them. The story others tell about what happened will keep changing. That is not my concern. I know what is true. I have the documents, the timelines, the scars. I do not need consensus. When I lock my office for the night, the city lights reflect back at me, steady and impersonal. Tomorrow will be busy. There will be meetings, decisions, consequences. None of them will require me to shrink. My name is Brianna Hale. I am 28 years old. I live in Newton, Massachusetts. And for the first time, the life I am building belongs entirely to me. I step forward without witnesses, without applause, carrying only what I earned. And I do not look back at the people who mistook my silence for weakness, because silence was never absence. It was preparation, and I am finished preparing for what comes next now ahead.